My name is Dr. Michael Brown, and this is 3 Words, a bite-sized podcast about the simple and yet extremely significant choices that all of us can make in order to be fully alive. Today in the studio, I have none other than a very common, frequent guest here at 3 Words Podcast, Barb Roose, who I invited into this conversation in hopes of encouraging you, inspiring you to grow and develop, particularly around these 3 words, releasing your control. Here's a surprise, though. I felt like I was in a therapy session today, and it was amazing to be encouraged. I felt the stress in my body begin to release as I sat in the presence of Barb as she shared some amazing thoughts and tips about how to experience peace and to let go of anxiety and anger. Listen in. Barb Roose, it is so great to have you back here in the studio. In fact, you don't know this, but I just signed the book that I gave you, and one of the things I wrote in my note to you is that, true confession, I am one of your greatest fans. So
okay,
thanks for being back. I think it's been, 7-8 episodes here in 3 Words Podcast Studio, and I kind of confided in you that you're on the A team, which means we get you here as often as we can in the studio, and it's just really an honor and a pleasure. So I'm guessing our listeners, our viewers probably know you by now if they track closely with 3 Words Podcast. But for those who don't, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, the very first thing is that I am honored to be a guest here again with you today. I am truly honored, and I appreciate the value that you bring to everyone who listens and to just the community. You make a lasting and positive impact that has benefited my life in many ways. So thank you. I am, for those who are just joining us, I'm a speaker and author, and I am passionate about equipping people to live strong and courageous lives because I believe that everyone has a great adventure of faith and purpose. And so I can do that whether it's speaking, whether it's writing books, or frankly, just sitting across from someone drinking a cup of coffee.
I love it. Well, and we were chatting a little bit off camera, and you were saying that you actually just finished another book, and the book that most applies, or even the devotional that most applies to our topic, without sharing the 3 words yet. Tell us a little bit about your book.
This is all about the things in life that we wish could be different and all of our ways to try to make it different, and recognizing that peace is recognizing that we have to surrender. And that's not the easiest thing to do, but in many ways, it's the cheat code for our survival, our emotional health is
I agree
surrender.
with that. So in light of that, obviously the book that you're written, and then you're an author of many other books, but these 3 words probably tie into a lot of the podcasts that we've done together, the conversations we've had, as well as some of the writing that you've done. So let's share our 3 words for today with our viewers and listeners.
Today's 3 words: release your control.
Now, control issues. It's obviously, if you say who has control issues, if you're talking to a crowd, I'm guessing a lot of people will be raising their hand. But why did you choose those 3 words? Why is this topic so important to you?
This topic is important because I don't think I've ever run into anyone who just said, no, I don't have any issues with control. I believe I actually like to call them, instead, people go, oh, I'm a control freak. I actually like to use the phrase control-loving behaviors.
Okay.
Because I believe that I don't think we should define ourselves by the thing that we struggle with. Control is our desire to fix or force outcomes so that life looks like how we want it to look. And the problem for me is that if I try to make things look how I think that they should look, I'm going to mess up not only my life, but other people's lives, because I am a flawed, I'm a loving person, but I am not an omniscient person. And so trying to control that which I don't always have control around, it's going to make a mess every time.
Well, and I love the fact that you use this idea of omniscience, because obviously you and I both see the world through a really dynamic spiritual lens. And obviously when we use the word omniscience to refer to God, it is all-knowing.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I'm not all-knowing. I wish I was, but I'm not. And I was thinking about control because obviously as we coach and consult all over the country at this point, and we talk about control issues, I like the way you're rephrasing it, but it is that idea of trying to micromanage the outcomes, which we can't.
But we want to. And that's
For sure.
For sure. There is something inside of me from the time I was a little kid when my mom said, give it to me, and I said no. And it is this desire for all of us. I think as humans, we want to protect what we love. We want to fix what's broken, and we want to keep the train on the track. And
wow, those are three great thoughts.
and when you and I look at our lives, much of what our manufacturing our energy is going to do those three things. But when we find that we're not able to do those things, we pull out a toolbox of control-loving behaviors. I write about them. I call the shine control-loving behaviors. There's usually 5 that we default to.
Okay.
S is for stonewalling. It's when we dig our heels in. It's our way or no way. H is helicoptering. It's when we're micromanaging people. I is interrupting, not just with interrupting what people are saying, but we're interfering with their lives. N is nagging. And dudes get nagged just like women. Once is telling, more than once is nagging. And then the last is E, which is excessive planning. And so for us as humans, whenever we recognize we cannot protect what we love, fix what's broken, keep the train on the track, we're going to pull out one of those behaviors and we're going to get to work on that situation.
Now, you just pulled those out of nowhere. I'm sure you have written about that in one of your books. Is there a book where you highlight that?
Yes, that's from the Surrendered. There's a Surrendered Bible study, but there's also a Surrendered devotional. But where I came up with those was me. I looked and I had to reflect on whenever I had relational conflict or issues, what was I doing in those situations where I was trying to control? And it was those things: stonewalling, helicoptering, interrupting, nagging, or excessive planning. And what happened is that people do not want to be stonewalled, helicoptered, interrupted, nagged, or excessively planned. And I was like, how's that working for me?
I'm going to pause right now in my conversation with Barb and just simply acknowledge that this conversation is so deep and meaningful. I'm presuming that as you listen, not only are you being encouraged, but you're thinking of someone you should share this episode with. Go ahead and do that now. Now back to our conversation. Yeah. Well, I love the fact that, first of all, that's an acrostic, because those who know me know I love my acrostics.
Me too!
So I'm never going to forget that. So obviously you have just in a very short period of time, which is perfect for a bite-sized podcast, kind of highlighted for us our control-loving behaviors, as well as how we actually respond when we're feeling those things bubble to the surface. But the podcast is entitled Release Your Control. So I'm guessing you have some tips for us on how we actually release that.
Very much so. The visual for me, my oldest, Kai, is a captain in the U.S. Army. And Kai was an undergrad at West Point. And when your mom is an author like me, Kai's like, I'm going to ask mom to proof my papers. So what I recognized about releasing control came the year that I was proofing Kai's military art papers. By the way, military art is actually not an art class. It's a strategic class about war. And surrender was a survival strategy. So when one side recognized that they did not have the resources to win the war and they were at risk of mortal death, surrender was not giving up and it wasn't giving in, but it was a strategy to give over control so that they could survive and live to fight another day. And how this plays out for us is when you and I have things in life that we passionately want and desire, but it's not coming together, our mental health will be at the expense if we keep trying to hold on, if we keep trying to fix it and force it. But when we don't give up, because it's important, we don't give in to hopelessness, but we take it and we release it, it allows us to find peace and strength so that we can get up. And then there are 2 questions we can ask ourselves.
Okay.
What is in my control and what isn't in my control?
Right. That's right.
And those 2 questions allow us to create what I call healthy trajectory. So we may not be able to fix the outcome, but we can release our control, trying to control the outcome. And then we can ask ourselves those 2 questions so that we can create a healthy trajectory for wherever the path takes us.
So I'm guessing you would then encourage people to control that which we can control.
Very much
Control
so.
the controllables, right?
We can, and most of it has to do with us. I don't know about you, but how has it worked in your life when you try to control other people?
Well, one of my favorite phrases is people occasionally change, but people never change people.
Woo! Yes.
So, because we want to control, obviously, our significant other. We want to control our friendships. Because, again, it goes back to what you said. At the root of control, this is my sense of things. You're the expert. But my sense of things is that the root of control in our control-loving behaviors is fear.
Always.
Always fear.
Always.
And most of the decisions we make that are unhealthy are out of fear.
Yes.
And I am curious, too. You mentioned that obviously if we learn to release control, Barb, that it actually helps our mental health, which obviously is huge. But also, does it help to deal with strained relationships? Because it seems to me that when we're trying to control people, they're not wanting to be controlled, and it tends to actually create...
Yes.
In fact, Steve Risky, who you and I both know, we actually did a podcast entitled "Controlling Isn't Caring."
Right.
That was one of our 3 words
title.
because it was about this idea that we want to control the people we most love, the people we most want to help, the people we most want to nurture and encourage and inspire. We sometimes cross that line and try to control. So then we have obviously mental health issues, but then also strained relationships.
When Amy Seifert and I did my very first 3 words podcast, the title was Worry Solves Nothing, those 3 words. And part of where our control comes in is the fear, and it's summed up in 2 words, what if? And so there's something I call worry flicks. And worry flicks are these negative mental movies that we make up in our mind, kind of like Netflix. When you're watching Netflix and that show ends, the next show automatically loads. And the way our brain works is our brain does not just stop after a few episodes and go, we're good. Our brain's like, no, we have 32 more seasons of 16 episodes. And so our desire to control is because we have this constant what if worry in our mind. Releasing control allows us to lay down those what if worries because we're in fight or flight. As long as we've got the what if worries, we're in fight or flight. We feel like our lives are at risk. We're going to lose something. But releasing control, it sends a message to our brains and our bodies that we're safe, we're going to be okay, we can trust the process, and then that allows us to do better thinking. People who don't release control are anxious and angry. People who do release control are peaceful and productive.
Not only are you pulling in acrostics, you're pulling in alliteration now.
So
I'm anxious and angry,
Correct.
Peaceful and productive.
Yeah.
So obviously, as we turn the corner on this amazing conversation, first of all, I'm going to encourage our listeners to purchase Surrender. Who is the publisher on the Surrender book?
That is Abingdon Press, and it's the Surrendered Devotional.
Okay.
It is this lovely devotional. I cover the shine, control, loving behaviors, but also it's 40 little devotionals. They take 3 minutes, 45 seconds, and they're about all of the topics where we struggle to let go. So letting go of anxiousness, letting go of the future, fear of the future, letting go of problems of the past. So all of these topics where we struggle to let go.
So for those who haven't read the book, or hopefully they will, but just to give them a little teaser now, what are some kind of final words or just encouragements? Because I don't know if you noticed as you started sharing some of these thoughts, I literally found myself taking a deep breath and feeling this release, because it just... Anybody who's listening, and even as I sit in your presence, who doesn't want to live this way, where you just feel free, where you're not overthinking, where you're not anxious, you're not angry, and so forth. And so give us a few just little tips as we walk away.
So I'm going to share one tip.
Okay.
And we're going to do it together. And this is one of my absolute favorites. And anyone listening, you can do this all the time. And I want people to think about doing this when you get home from work at night, because many of us are going to walk into a household with the people that we love and care about. And we're going to have a lot that we picked up during the day. And you've done this before in many ways, but we're just going to start with putting our hands on our lap. You do this in your car, and you're going to say, I am home now, and I'm going to release my anger, my frustration, my anxiety over the things that I picked up or I came in contact with today. And I'm just going to release those. I can't change them. I can't control them. But I'm not going to take them in the house and put them with the people I love. And then you flip your hands over and say, right now, I want to receive peace and grace and love to give to those that I love. And that is what we call the hands up, the hands down, the hands up tool to surrender. And when we do this, it allows us to set aside that anxiousness that can turn into anger so that we can be present and we can be loving and graceful to the people who are important to us. That's what we want in life.
Barb, as I said at the beginning, I'm one of your greatest fans, and you are Team A team with 3 Words Podcast. Thanks for being with us again today. We'll have you back very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much again, 3 Words Podcast family, for joining us for this conversation and being a part of our journey. We love coming alongside of you and helping you be fully alive and to experience what it looks like to really grow into the very best version of yourself. If you want to stay more connected to us, we would encourage you to go to dmbcoaching.com/subscribe, where you can actually subscribe to our monthly newsletter. Until the next time, have a great, great life.